I want to talk about the arts and culture because I want to talk about this as much as I possibly can because it's everything. It's why I started becoming a commentator in the first place. I love the arts. And, I love certain arts more than others, of course, and I love literature and I love storytelling most of all, probably. But I love painting, any visual arts. I'm crazy about them, good music. But the thing is, and the only way to save the arts is to love them. Now, all these conservatives, I hate video games, and I hate this, and I hate that. You're not going to do anything if you hate the arts. The arts are an act of love. So dedicating your life to the arts, as I have, is an act of love. And the arts themselves are a way of producing beauty. But the arts have a different idea of what truth is than a newspaper. We know this, right? Richard III is one of Shakespeare's great history plays. There's historians debate whether Richard III was truly a villain. In Shakespeare, he's determined to be a villain, as he himself says. And so he's not telling history necessarily. He's talking about evil, and he's talking about sex and and kingship and power and all the things that matter in human life. That's what the arts are for. But when the left takes over the arts, they become a vehicle of propaganda. And I don't want to take them back to become a vehicle of propaganda for the right. I simply want other voices to be able to speak. And that's the battle we've been fighting from the beginning. So let's take a look at this movie, A Complete Unknown, about Bob Dylan. And it's directed by James Mangold. And I'm kind of a Mangold fan. He made the only superhero movie that I think matters at all, which is Logan. And I wrote a piece about the meaning of Logan and how it links up the superhero genre to the Western genre to Jesus Christ, and I think it's very brilliantly done. And Mangold wrote me a very nice note about my article, and he's an interesting guy because he's a very talented director, but he doesn't stick with one genre, so he doesn't get the same kind of auteur worship that other guys like Martin Scorsese gets. Still, really good director, and he tells the story of Bob Dylan coming to New York and linking up with Pete Seeger because he worships Woody Guthrie and other folk singers. And Pete Seeger is a very generous guy, and he helps him out. And obviously, Bob Dylan becomes an icon. And then 4 years later at the Newport Folk Festival, Dylan, feeling kind of oppressed by fame and by his genre and all this, breaks out of the genre by going electric and breaks with Pete Seeger and breaks with the folk writers. And that's the story, right? And so there's Timothy Chalamet plays Dylan. I have to say, because Chalamet looks so girly, I always expect him to be a lousy actor, but he's actually a good actor, and he's absolutely great in this. He's terrific in this. And Pete Seeger, the folk singer, is brilliantly played by Edward Norton, just one of the terrific actors out there. And he comes across, he's a fan, where Dylan is sleeping around and doing all the 60s stuff. Norton is a family man. He's a man of patience. He's got professional generosity. He helps Dylan achieve a kind of fame that that Pete Seeger himself, can never achieve. And here's a scene where Dylan is invited to a party and they're trying to pressure him into performing at this fundraiser. And he bumps into Pete Seeger, and this is a little exchange they have, Norton and Chalamet, cut 10.
Hey, Pete.
Hi.
How you doing?
Good.
Nice
Great to see you.
Toshi. How you doing? We made around the world in 80 days, huh?
It's a magic carpet ride. Just full of wonder. Full of wonder.
This is Becca, by the way.
Nice to meet you. This is my wife, Toshi.
Nice to meet you. I absolutely love your music. I'm such a big fan, Mr. Seeger.
Pete.
Oh, Pete.
Harold is putting the lean on you there? Trying to get you to play?
Yeah, a little bit.
All right. Well, don't hold it against him. It's for a good cause. Want to use this beauty?
They always keep it handy, huh, Pete? He's like a gunfighter with his 6 gun. He's keeping it close.
He's talking about his banjo. So they left out one thing, right? So the movie, I thought the movie was good. It was entertaining. It was really well acted. Music, I'm not a big fan of that kind of music, but more of a fan of that than just straight out rock. And I enjoyed it. Like all movies now, it's 20, 30 minutes too long, but still, it's pretty good. They leave out one thing, though. Seeger was a Soviet stooge. He may have been a nice guy. I don't know. He may have been a lovely husband. He seems to have been a devoted father and husband in the movie, and I'm willing to believe all that. But he was also a Soviet stooge and a Stalinist propaganda. There's an article in City Journal by Howard Hussock called America's Most Successful Communist about Pete Seeger. And what he points out is that pop music and all our arts have been taken over by the left But that didn't have to happen. This is what Hussick says in City Journal. The politicization of American pop dates from the 1960s, but grew out of a patient leftist political strategy that began in the 1930s with the Communist Party's Popular Front. The Popular Front sought to enlist Western artists and intellectuals, some of them not party members, but fellow travelers, to use art, literature, and music to insinuate the Marxist worldview into the broader culture. That was Pete Seeger. He later on said he may have made a mistake about Stalin. Stalin may have had a few flaws, but basically he was promoting Soviet communism through his songs. His big song was, of course, "Where Have All the Flowers Gone," which is an anti-war song. And you think, well, we all hate war. Why is an anti-war song necessarily Soviet? But the point was always pay attention to the injustices of America, race injustice, money injustice. But the unspoken other side of that was that the Soviet Union was doing it right. And that's why a lot of the protesters during the Vietnam War were supporting the communists in Vietnam, who then came into Cambodia and slaughtered peasants. And then they blamed America for that, too. If you go back and watch the killing fields, he says, well, they got angry because we fought with them, and that's why they slaughtered people. No, they slaughtered people because that's what communists basically do. So I have to tell you, feeling the way I was feeling, I was up almost all of last night. I am so glad I have a Helix mattress. I'm not joking. I'm so happy that at least if I'm going to suffer with a cold, I'm going to be comfortable where I am lying in bed. One thing I've loved about this Helix mattress is how well it does temperature regulation, because I get into the sweats at night. I'm sure a lot of you have the same thing, but this mattress is great for that. It's easy to connect to other wearable devices so you can actually see the data to back up your sleep improvements. What makes Helix different is they don't just sell you a random mattress. They match you with the perfect one for your body and sleep style. Whether you're a side sleeper, back sleeper, or somewhere in between, they've got you covered. And trust me, when you find the right match, you'll wonder how you ever slept on anything else or even lay down on anything else. Right now is actually the perfect time to upgrade your sleep because Helix is offering an incredible deal. Go to helixsleep.com/Klavan to get 25% off site-wide plus 2 free Dream pillows with any mattress purchase. That's a good deal. That's helixsleep.com/Klavan for 25% off site-wide plus 2 free Dream pillows with any mattress purchase. helixsleep.com/ and I know what you're thinking, /Klavan. What kind of word is that? It's Klavan, no E's. I just make it look easy. So Pete Seeger was singing about the rights of minorities and women and all that stuff. And all of those things are real causes, but they were meant to distract and to say, well, look, the Soviet Union treats black people better. They treat women are equal in the Soviet Union. It was true. They had to go to work just like everybody else. And Dylan joined in on this. He had a song like The Times They Are Changing. Here's just a clip of that, cut 12.
Mothers and fathers throughout the land, and don't criticize what you can't understand. Your sons and your daughters are beyond your command. Your old road is rapidly aging. Please get out of the new one if you can't lend your hand, for the times they are a-changing.
Now, I have to say that I grew up in this period, and I always thought that song was a little bit ungrateful. It should have been, hey, mothers and fathers, thanks for killing the Nazis. We don't have to fight, but we want to pretend we're heroes, so we'll attack America where people don't hurt us and let the communists slaughter peasants in Cambodia because the times they are changing. Those were the lyrics I would have written. So a little different than Dylan's lyrics, but still, it's a moving song, and he's a terrific writer, songwriter, Dylan. But the thing is, so the story in the movie is that he basically goes electric. And this is what the people at the folk festival can't stand about him, that he goes electric and they're not, they're playing banjos and guitars. But there's a really good piece, good writer, Michael C. Monahan in the Free Press. I like Monahan, and he writes a piece called The Truth about Bob Dylan's falling out with Pete Seeger. The 60s folk singers didn't hate Dylan because he went electric. As a complete unknown suggests, it was because he didn't care about their lefty politics. Dylan was an artist, like I'm an artist, okay? Artists are a certain kind of people. He didn't want to be constrained by the politics. He wanted to do stuff with his music, right? And he had this ongoing affair with Joan Baez, who was very lefty and who promoted some of his songs. And after he went electric, she didn't complain about his sound. She wrote a song to him. It's just an awful, awful, terrible, soppy song called To Bobby, in which she said, "Oh, come back, Bobby, and take care of the poor starving children," and they come back to leftism. Here's a little clip of this. It's just a cringy song. Cut 13.
Do you hear the voices in the night, Bobby? They're crying for you. See the children in the morning light, Bobby. They're dying. Perhaps the pictures in the Times could no longer be put in rhymes when all the eyes of starving children are wide open.
All right, so that's the real story of A Complete Unknown. Is not just the guy started going, Dylan went electric. It's that he's told the left, I'm not your pawn. I'm just going to do my art and I'm going to write the songs that I want to write, while Pete Seeger kept this kind of iron leftist grip on folk music. Now, the divergence here does not make this a bad movie. Just like Richard III is not a bad movie if we find out that Richard III is not a bad play if we find out that Richard III was in fact a great guy. That's not the thing. That's not what he's writing about. We have to understand the arts as the arts, and we have to love the arts. You can't. This is the thing about the left, is you cannot beat up on these artists. I understand that they show up at these award show and they say things outside their field of knowledge, and artists are children. I mean, I'm telling you this. We want to tell stories. We want to make pictures. We want to write songs. Artists are children, and ask my wife about this. She'll tell you, it's like, she's like, it's like living with a gigantic 5-year-old. She's like, oh, by the way, you insulted all these people in Hollywood. Now we don't have any money anymore. And I'm like, oh, look, there's a cloud that looks like a unicorn. That's what it's like with artists. We have to understand that about that. But we have to build a culture around them by our behaviors, by our beliefs, like we did when basically we took, the conservatives took control of the movies with the Hayes office, which I'm not necessarily in favor of. But in other words, the artists will come up. If we don't show up for their movies, or if we protest what's in their movies, or we point out the truth about their movies, then we will have an effect on them. But you can't do it by hating the arts themselves. You can't do it by constantly railing about the arts. That movie about the atom bomb, the one about the Christopher Nolan film. What's in it? What? Oppenheimer. Sorry. Yeah, I got Oppenheimer. The Oppenheimer film. That Oppenheimer was a communist. I mean, he didn't join the party, but he was a communist, and that film was very slanted in that way. But still, it's a very good movie. I don't think it's a great movie, but it's a very good movie. But here's the thing. The arts are beautiful, and artists are kind of beautiful souls. They're beautiful childlike souls, and they're going to make beautiful things. And we have to encourage that and allow it. But it would be a good idea if we could have the kind of influence that the communists had without the same sort of deceit. Let us, educate people. Let us have our intellectuals, let them write for the people. Let them not just, hide away in places, but we should build. This is another thing we need to build, is we need to build popular venues with intellectual weight. It can't always, one of the things that the right always does, we always play to the lowest common denominator, because people on the right tend to be the least educated people and the most educated people, the smartest, and the people who are not, they may not be dumb, but they're not as educated as others. And that's what makes up the right. The people in the middle, those are kind of the people who sort of drift into leftism because they're not paying much attention because it sounds very nice. So again, I just want to end by saying this. I understand that this censorship regime, coming out of the censorship regime is, like I said, it's like coming out of a nightmare of oppression, a nightmare of dishonesty. The fact that they were cutting pieces off children, to make them into, to shape them into the opposite sex. I mean, the evil of that still boggles the mind, but it's only emblematic of the evil of hiring people because they're lesbians to fight fires, or emblematic of hiring people according to the color of their skin, whether that color is white or black. I don't care which bigot you are. It doesn't matter to me at all. The idea that racism is not a sin is just ridiculous. All of those things, we're waking up for this. What do we want to replace it with? Well, we don't want to replace it with the hatred on the other side. We don't want to replace it on clamping down and censorship on the other side. We want to replace it by understanding what it is as Americans we're saying. We're not saying fascism. We're not saying communism. We're saying freedom. We're saying liberty, and liberty only exists through love. It's only the truth that sets you free, right? It is the truth that sets you free. And we shouldn't be afraid. We shouldn't be afraid to think, oh, if I'm not hateful, I won't have the same strength. If I don't hate black people, I won't be able to talk about black crime. If I don't hate Muslim people, I won't be able to talk about Islamic violence. That's just not true. Love and truth and beauty, those aren't just virtues. They're weapons. They're weapons. And now we have these big monster blockers like Donald Trump and Elon Musk clearing a path for us to use those weapons. We should get on the offensive and charge by making art, by doing journalism, by doing the positive. We've debunked them. We've undermined them. We've exposed them. But now we have to build the structures to review the arts, to love the arts, to make the arts, and to do journalism, to do real journalism, and to spread the ideas that we have. It can't just be about hating them. It has got to be about loving what we are, which is a free people, a Christly people, a people even if we don't believe we are in the tradition that comes down to us through Christianity. That's the only reason people should be free, because they're free souls who have to exercise their free will to become virtuous. You can't just be virtuous by force. You have to exercise your free will. That's why we're here. That's what we're doing. This is the time to begin. It is an amazing, amazing time. Don't follow the Pied Pipers of hatred. Don't follow the Pied Pipers of conspiracy theories. Just follow the truth. Follow the truth. The truth will set us free. For more Klavan-y goodness, like and subscribe. And for even more, subscribe to The Andrew Klavan Show wherever you get your podcasts.